Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ayanda, and on today's video we are in the middle of nowhere. I'm kidding, we're not far from my house. I wanted to have a conversation today, especially with the fall of Twitter. Well, Twitter is not falling, but Elon Musk has pissed off a lot of people lately, and I think everyone is just waiting to see whether he's going to completely collapse Twitter or not. And I'm not sure how I'm feeling about that, especially because I've just resuscitated my Twitter live. Please follow me on the handle on the screen, and yeah, today we're gonna be having a little conversation. I actually was planning to do a grocery haul vibe and thing, but I'm currently not in the mood to be cooking. And I thought, should I go buy fruits instead, because I want watermelon and grapes, but I bought watermelon yesterday. The grapes, they're far, I can't travel all that distance just for grapes, so I asked my boyfriend to bring the grapes and more watermelon today, so there was really no need for me to go anywhere. Hence we are now on this walk. We're not even walking, hence you're sitting here with me now, and we're gonna have a conversation like we usually do. Yeah, let's get into it. So I think every time we have this conversation, we always have to define exactly what is a sex worker, especially with the rise of this anti-sex worker vibe that's going on social media, where anyone and everyone that demands reciprocation from men is considered a sex worker. I think the lines have gotten blurred a lot. I think most of the time we no longer know what a sex worker is. I think now people are just using the term sex worker to just now chastise any woman that demands any sort of payback for the effort that they put in relationships. So sex workers are people that are getting goods or money in return for consensual sexual services, as well as erotic performances. And you can think of many things that constitute sex work, but for the sake of clarity and, in respect of the reality that people would always go out of their way to misinterpret what certain things mean to suit their narrative, I think it's important to, I'm not saying we should limit the meaning to sex work, but I think it's also important to clearly define what sex work is. And it can always evolve. Relationships between sugar daddies and sugar babies are transactional and can be considered to be sex work. And webcam stuff, webcams when, webcams, guys. Why do I doubt that you know webcam? So I'm sure you're already now noticing that I'm deliberately not using the P word. I cannot say it because I don't know if it's restricted on YouTube, and I also cannot say it because I don't like the word, and sex workers do not like to be called that word because they believe that it further stigmatizes them and the work that they do. They feel like the term sex work is more suited for the stuff that they do, and it also prevents or takes away the negativity that is associated with the work that they do. So if you're going to be commenting on this video, I highly also encourage you to not use that P word. You can refer to them as sex workers, and we proceed in that regard. The reason I thought of sex workers when I was thinking of Twitter was because during COVID-19, OnlyFans, sex workers on OnlyFans, I don't know about other platforms, but especially on OnlyFans, were making bag. They were in their bag. I cannot tell you how many tweets I saw of people that were like, I've quit that job, I've gotten a house, I've gotten a Tesla. Others are saying, look, ever since I've been on OnlyFans, I've been able to study, I've been able to pay for my debt. All of those nice things that you expect sex work to do for people, right? Because for the most part, especially when you are not exposed to platforms such as those, the only sex workers you're exposed to are just low-income earning sex workers that are also probably drug users and are probably getting coerced into sex work or are into sex work because they are trying to feed their addiction. And so most of the time when we are exposed to those sort of sex workers, which also are in their bag, if you really think about it, and rightfully so. I mean, it doesn't matter what they're using the money for. The point is that they're also at work, are making money to feed their addiction, to go to school, or to feed their children, you know what I mean? But when you've been exposed only to those types of sex workers, it's difficult to imagine people making good money through sex work and actually feeding their large families and buying many houses and many cars. So it was really fun. It was actually, I felt a little proud when I saw them just making so much money through OnlyFans. And I think after a while, I think 2 years into COVID, there were some restrictions. I think they were taking down some OnlyFans account. I'm not sure what was happening there. But I also saw some pushback from OnlyFans content makers. They were complaining about the rules from Twitter, all of those things. Anyway, now that Twitter is collapsing, why do I keep saying Twitter is collapsing? Twitter is not collapsing. Now that, you know what, I'm going to speak life into Twitter. I actually, deep down, I want Elon Musk to be the one that collapses it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, if there's anyone that must just ruin everything, it must just be a billionaire with so much money that he doesn't know what to do but just ruin himself. So yes, if anyone must do it, Elon is the man. I support him. At the same time, I think Twitter is a great platform, and especially during this conversation of sex work, I think it has done a lot for sex workers. And I don't know. I've got mixed feelings, but follow me on Twitter. I'm going to be there until it bends to the ground. I'm going to be right there in the middle of it. You understand? So, yeah. So I've just been thinking about sex workers a lot lately, or just until I realized that one of their platforms of income could just essentially disappear. Anyway, if you're sitting there wondering why sex work, why do people do sex work, maybe also consider asking yourself, why do people become truck drivers? Why do people become chefs? Why do people become doctors? You know, why do people work? People work to earn an income. We are participating in this capitalist economy in many different forms, including sex work. So I think, and which is a difficult thing for people to understand. They're like, okay, well, you're a sex worker, you are making money through your it's not the same as me building a house. Well, you're also using your body to build that house, are you not? When you go to work and you use your brain to come up with ideas, are you not using a part of your body? How is that different from sex work? I'm trying to understand. Despite the obvious, and well, I'm aware of the biases and the feelings of people and the right they think they have over women's bodies. But beyond all of that, I think people should just start thinking to themselves, why do I not think that this is work? Most of the time, you're going to arrive to one point that you do not think that it should be work because of your views about women, especially women. I'm aware that there's a plethora of sex workers, some of them non-women, but you know, this is where we are. This is the conversation that I'm hoping to have at this particular time, just limited to women specifically. Yeah, reflect on that. Why do you not think sex work is real work? Because there's been many conversations that have been provided where people were explaining why sex work is real work. At this point, the only challenge or the only reason people do not accept it as real work is because of their views about women and women's bodies, especially women's vaginas. So beyond people just doing sex work for the money, there's also the money is a big part of it, but people also prefer to do sex work because of the flexibility of the hours. You can go to school, you can do another work, and you can still do sex work, which can maximize your income. And like I said, the money is usually good, and when there are no exploitative elements to it, where the women that are doing the sex work are in charge of the terms and conditions that apply to the sex working conditions, blah, 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 the money usually gets good. And I think people enjoy the power that they have over the pricing, over determining how and where and when they work. I think it's like being self-employed, basically. Yeah, it's being self-employed. I could put it that way. I'm oversimplifying it, but yeah, it's giving an opportunity to those people that are doing sex work to increase their income while also taking charge of their work that they do. That doesn't make sense. What does that mean? But you get what I mean. Do you? Because I don't get what I mean. Okay, can you hear the chickens? You guys, there's so many chickens here. They're not even running away when I'm trying to chase them off. My video is just gonna be made of loud chickens and sex. 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 Like, I'm gonna have to listen to this tonight just to see if the sound is good, and if, you know, it's gonna be a weird video if that's all you can hear. So if you've not been living under a rock, you should know that there's been numerous calls by civil organizations, political parties, and even sexual sex workers for the decriminalization of sex work. When sex work is criminalized in the way that it is in our country, it means that sex working conditions remain unsafe. Sex workers are still unable to negotiate terms with their clients. Someone is passing and they're making noise. I'm so annoyed. They have on what do you call headphones, and you know what? I hope you didn't hear them. So when sex workers cannot negotiate terms, it means that they cannot even make as much money, or they cannot even meet the bare minimum of how much they should make. They cannot negotiate whether there should be condom use. They cannot negotiate how long the session takes. Just very basic. Okay. Also, when sex work is criminalized, sex workers are also unable to carry around condoms, which facilitates the process to be safer and healthier for all parties involved. In some areas, police officers are known to be searching, women that are suspected to be sex workers. And if you have condoms on you, they conclude that you're a sex worker. They conclude. And the chicken that's making noise is the chicken that I was trying to kick off here. I think it's trying to... Yes, that worked. So when the police would find sex workers having condoms on their bodies or in their purses or in their pockets, they would further violate them, stigmatize them, just basically make sure to make their lives difficult. So some sex workers don't even carry around condoms because they don't want to be found guilty of doing sex work. So when sex work is criminalized in this way, it means that there is a plethora of criminality that also thrives along with sex work being criminalized, because these are also borderline human rights, not even borderline, there are human rights violations that are also occurring to sex workers and in that environment, and nothing is done because, well, you shouldn't have been doing sex work to begin with. So the conversation about decriminalizing sex work is an important one, which I think all of us should be in support of, and especially if you are claiming to be in support of individual and women rights and human rights, I think this is a conversation that you cannot distance yourself from. And although it's also important to know that decriminalizing sex work does not necessarily mean legalizing sex work, a whole different conversation. You have this setup that is happening in the country, right, where sex work is criminalized. Now, what does that mean? It means that sex work goes underground. Underground just essentially means that people are doing a good job of hiding it. When sex work is underground, things just get even more complicated now, because there's other crimes just continue to happen. In cases where there's usually sex work, there's also probably other things that are happening that are also illegal. It's almost like they are lumped together because, well, you're also not supposed to be doing that. Well, you're also not supposed to be doing that. Let's hide in here together. And because sex workers are usually women, those women in there end up falling prey to the other criminal elements that are in that world. And even from law enforcement, as I've already explained, there's a lot of harassment that happens. There's a lot of human rights violations, sexual assaults, it's a lot, including human trafficking. including human trafficking. I mean, I cannot imagine how many cases of human trafficking sex workers witness, but they cannot come forward to say, hey, I have evidence, hey, I have that, because law enforcement and people in general have stigmatized them as these people that cannot be trusted, people that do not have anything. Guys, I feel like everything is just loud. I apologize, but this video must go up by tomorrow, so I have to film now, otherwise I will not be able to do this any other time. So I apologize if you're hearing many sounds, but the truth of the matter is that sex work can also be harmful. As much as we support it, there's also the truth to it that says this is dangerous work. But the danger and the harm that comes from sex work is usually perpetuated by it being criminalized. If sex work, in the way that I could make an example with OnlyFans again, that sex workers on OnlyFans enjoy some freedom and some safety in comparison to sex workers on the ground or sex workers that you find in downtown what. Those sex workers on social media especially are received more kindly. I can't even say kindly, more accepted. I don't know how to explain it, or I don't know what the link is. Well, I know what the link is, but I'm hoping that you also connect the dots. But the thing about sex work being so stigmatized, and the irony of it is that people hate sex workers in real life. When you see a sex worker at the corner of the street, most people usually frown, and these are the same people that would consume sex workers through other platforms like Pornhub and OnlyFans and all of those sites that allow you to do what you do in your room when it's dark and everything. So people are not necessarily even against sex work. I don't even know what it is. It's not even people being conservative. At this point, I think, let me not think. I refuse to think, because I'm going to go on another tangent. But let's just ponder on that a little bit, that I don't think the issue is sex work. I think people, or it could be the access. Maybe people are just are taking advantage of having physical access to sex workers. Because you cannot necessarily, well, I'm sure sex workers online also receive inappropriate messages, and there are people that are, borderline just being wrong and are not respecting their boundaries and everything. But I think when people see sex workers in their life, they feel more entitled to what they do, and also feel like they could control or stop or take, or also enjoy what sex workers are doing. People would tell you about, oh my God, people are going to be, human trafficking is going to increase, because if we legalize sex work, or we decriminalize sex work, so many people are going to want to do sex work. That is besides the point. It's not even, it's a non-factor, because even now, sex work is criminalized, but many people are still doing it, some consensually and some non-consensually. And you cannot claim to want to deal with the non-consensual element to sex work, or the part where people are forced into sex work, by totally shutting off sex work, because you're never going to shut it off. The best way to deal with, or legalizing, or there's a word I'm looking for, regulating sex work, is to bring it into light. Don't make it some sort of taboo that no one supports and the entire world is against, because that is deeply untrue. We support sex work, we consume sex work in many different forms. And in fact, it's actually annoying to consistently have this conversation. When you log on to Pornhub, there's like 3 million views on a video. When you log on to OnlyFans, so many subscribers to a if sex workers on OnlyFans, like I've said in the beginning of the video, are able to make a shit ton of money in the way that they have been doing so, it means that there's a market for sex work. And that market does not exist outside of what you think is morally right. Because even those people that are claiming to be against sex work are most also likely consuming that content. So people need to get off their high horses. That's what I think. People need to get off their high horses. If you are trying to make the world a safer place, a place where you can regulate and control criminality, this is one way in which you can assist in doing so, by making sure that you are not empowering criminals by putting sex work underground and making people die and people get trafficked, human trafficked in those spaces without any witnesses coming forward, without any links leads to anything, because people are afraid that when they come forward, they're going to be violated by the same law enforcement officials that should be protecting them. I mean, can you imagine how many elements? I mean, even in the drug world, a lot of drug dealings are associated with sex work. How many drug dealers do you think would be arrested if sex work was not criminalized? How many sex workers would come forward to say, hey, I know a big thing, and you know, I have this big scoop. This is where this drug is being transported to, and this is how it operates. But they cannot come forward because we have made them into these people that cannot form part of society and cannot form part of conversations about development and human rights issues and labor rights issues. Like, we have a lot on our hands, and the more we start having nuanced conversations is the more that we can be able to move forward and to create environments where there's control and the law is rule, you know, the rule of law, the law. Criminalizing sex work has done nothing to stop the trade. If anything, the industry continues to grow. And, you know, it's going to start seeming like I'm speaking for governments now when I say they should regulate every sphere of the country. But I do think that they should decriminalize sex work, legalize it, and then ensure to regulate it in a way that it can contribute meaningfully to the economy as well, because that element of the economy exists, and a lot of money is also lost to criminal elements, because sometimes, especially on the ground, there are a lot of violations, and there are a lot of labor right issues that are also violated, where people's monies, especially sex workers' monies, are being taken unnecessarily. So they're being exploited, they're being exploited essentially. And I think maybe they should look at it in the money element, you know, because we've tried to speak about it from a human rights element, from a feminist perspective. Now I think the language that we should be putting to them is, hey, there's 50 million in that, you know, field. Don't you want like 5 million? Which is pathetic if you really think about it. Now we need to bribe people to give us a right to our bodies and everything. It is exhausting, if you ask me. Very exhausting. A few months ago, 4 sex workers were found to have been killed in Joburg by a 21-year-old. Imagine a 21-year-old young man killed 4 sex workers and left them in his father's workshop. And things such as those would not take place if sex work would be decriminalized and legalized. When sex workers go missing, other sex workers should be able to go to the police and say, hey, I haven't seen my friend so-and-so. She usually works at this corner. I haven't seen her in a week and in a month. And the police should know and should have the conscience to investigate the missing person cases that happen in that environment. You know, some of these sex workers could be missing for a week before they are eventually killed. And no one would come to their rescue because, well, law enforcement would not come to their rescue because they don't take sex workers seriously, or they don't think sex workers deserve protection or safety, or they just don't see sex workers as people or as fellow citizens that deserve the protection that someone that does not do sex work deserves. You could be missing for months and years. You just essentially get erased from the face of the earth, and nothing is being done because, well, you shouldn't have been there. You shouldn't have been doing that job. You know what I mean? It's frustrating, and there needs to be a change. Something must happen, and it must happen very soon, because, like I'm saying, it's growing. It continues to grow, and a lot more people are being violated in that environment, and nothing is being done under the excuse of, well, you were doing illegal stuff anyway. You should not have been there. So yeah, so tired of these chickens. I'm going to go and let me show you. You guys, I'm hiking. You guys don't understand. I'm hiking and I have my water bottle. I have my watermelon. I have my watermelon. I'm gonna eat this now. and I'm going to leave. I'm gonna spend time with these chickens, and then I'm gonna leave. And thank you guys for watching. Please let me know of your views. If you have any contributions to make to this video, please make it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like. Also share this video with your friends. Let's extend the conversation, and see you next week. Don't miss me, I will miss you.